You know, I really love it when larger YouTubers like to gaslight smaller ones who disagree with them because they have a different opinion and they can't take criticism. It's one of my favorite things to watch on a platform as big as this one, and there's no shortage of hypocrisy. Today, we'll be looking no further than the worst game journalist on YouTube, Jeff Thu from Mother's Basement. Mother's Basement was a channel that I was pretty invested in many years ago for the What's in an OP series and his raging hate boner for Sword Art Online, but eventually I personally just lost interest in most of the content because his takes were getting progressively more and more Now, I've had my disagreements with Mr. Mother's Basement in the past. Go back to the basement order for JoJo's. But if you think about it, he uses tactics that most game journalists do, even though he's officially not one like he used to be. He wants to cause as much outrage as possible with the worst garbage takes as possible, and then those who decide to disagree with him are doing so in bad faith. He knows the basement order is garbage. But that's not the point. It's to generate the discussion, which is the business model. Because once you click on a video, you've already given him his ad revenue. He's in his own mindset and very much unwilling to change. See, Mother's Basement has this problem in his more recent content, where he just can't seem to avoid needlessly inserting his own politics into places where it doesn't belong. And then he'll go on a tirade that anyone who disagrees with him is doing so in bad faith or without the context of the full video.
And it's exhausting, honestly, to be stuck in an online discourse landscape where half the people discussing the new show, many without having watched it or even seemingly the anime, are just pretending that's not true to perpetuate their culture war narrative.
Now, I first noticed this in his review of the Konosuba movie, where he went on a tangent about how the character of Sylvia was an offense to trans people, and said that year it was better to watch Promare instead.
Now, maybe the joke is supposed to be that Kazuma's a transphobic asshole, but it doesn't really come off that way. If you only see one anime film this year, it should definitely be Promare.
Promare, a movie in the loosest sense of the word possible that was just a blast of colors and effects and didn't have a plot. But you know what it did have? It had Antifa imagery, it ends with a gay kiss, so those are the elements he values more than a coherent story. And this rears its ugly head in his most recent review of Netflix's Cowboy Bebop. His review is an hour long and is painfully awful instead of painfully honest. No clap, this is not only one of the worst takes on Cowboy Bebop out there, but one of the worst videos I've seen this year. Slightly less terrible than the video where YouTube removed the dislike button, which, coincidentally, Mother's Basement is one of the channels that benefits most from the removal of the dislike button, considering he follows the rage bait mindset that most game journalists rely on for their clicks, and then has the audacity to claim that people that disagree with him are just doing so out of rage bait. So I watched his entire video and very much disliked it. And since I can't publicly express my disapproval with one simple click anymore, I had to leave a comment telling him why. This is probably one of the worst videos on Bebop I've seen. The pacing and cohesion of your thesis is destroyed because you want to insert your political beliefs and interpretations where they really don't synergize with the main topic, and then have the audacity to claim those who disagree with you are doing so in bad faith or without context. I said this because his review should be of Cowboy Bebop from Netflix, but it's not. It's a review of a show he consistently says is not Cowboy Bebop, which is fine if you can substantiate it properly, and he really does throughout some of the video. However, per the Mother's Basement agenda, he can't resist inserting his politics into places where it just doesn't work with the video topic. And boy, oh boy, this got Mr. Basement very upset indeed, so much so that he decided to reply, "That's not what I said. I think rage baiting with a quote-minded headline that the quoted actor has publicly denounced acted in bad faith because they did." Let's stop right there for a second. In his video, he claims that people misquoted the live-action actor for Gren, saying that it was righting the wrongs of something called Sleepaway Camp and not Cowboy Bebop.
I like the actor playing Gren, and having actually read that one interview that grossly misquoted them in its headline, they were talking about righting the wrongs of Sleepaway Camp, not Cowboy Bebop.
But if you look into the article he shows, you can see Mother's Basement is just straight up lying here. And he thinks you're too stupid to go beyond the headline yourself, which is very hypocritical because he says the rage baiters don't go beyond the headline themselves. The direct quote from the article is this. Question. Given that the character was simultaneously groundbreaking and yet also a bit problematic back in the day, did you feel any apprehension approaching this updated version of Gren? Answer. I was really excited. We were in the midst of the pandemic. I was just very, very excited to have an opportunity to work. but there was fear involved in the recalibration of how we were going to approach the part. It felt necessary to me, it felt important to me as an artist, as a non-binary person, it felt important to get right. And to get it right for the representation aspect of it, and the storytelling aspect of it, as opposed to just for the optics of like, are people going to think that this is faithful to the original or not? I think Andre Nemec, our showrunner, and I were more concerned with Gren as an individual and how Gren's story will affect a new generation of LGBTQAI plus youth. We wanted to make sure that it was an opportunity to right some of the uncomfortable wrongs of a film like The Crying Game that Gren's entire track is sort of based on. And then, plus, writing some of the issues in the anime. He's not only lying in his video, but he's lying again in this comment. He says this is about something called Sleepaway Camp when that's never once mentioned in the article. Did he even read the article he showed in the video? I read the entire quote to you because I know he won't. So saying that the actor didn't say something he actually did is just Mother's Basement saving face for someone he agrees with politically. And I really hate that because it just assumes your audience is stupid. That's why I read that part in its entirety. Quoting the actor in this way, like in the article title, is not entirely in bad faith because that is the general sentiment of what the actor put out there. And if the actor's opinion changed and was publicly stated to have changed, well, I see that as something good, but there's no corrections listed at the end of the article, and I was unable to find what Mother's Basement was referring to. But I made it abundantly clear that I'm happy to consume art from and discuss it with people I disagree with politically. I have my suspicions with this claim, not only because his Twitter provides evidence to the contrary, but also considering he's unevenly equating Western conservatism with Eastern conservatism and Western liberalism with Eastern liberalism. But let's continue. You'd know that if you'd finished the video. I totally baited him into this response because I realized shortly after watching the video, wait a minute, he can't take criticism. He's probably going to claim that I didn't watch the video, so I went back, took a screenshot of my comments after watching towards the end, because YouTube rewinds you to about where you left off. Like Team Rocket, I laid my trap, and he just surprised Pikachu face right into it. He goes on to say, you'd also know Watanabe is quite open about his politics in all of his art, and I'm not inserting anything. In case you don't want to watch the bit where I preemptively refuted your exact comment though, here's a quote from the man himself. I wanted to have lots of characters in Bebop without white skin. If people weren't used to that, well, maybe it would even make them think a little bit about it. Wow, okay. Way to gaslight me completely and not even address my actual comment. This is so cowardly. He wants to bring race into the discussion where it really wasn't the angle I was getting at. This type of response attempts to paint me as some kind of racist for not liking non-white characters in my anime, when I never said that and I clearly don't believe that. I don't care what characters look like or identify as long as they're well-written characters. He's literally just talking down to me because he's a bigger channel, he has all the Twitter-approved opinions, and he doesn't care. And all this preemptive crap doesn't fly because he openly states in his video he's trying to start drama by alienating half of his audience, and then claims that that half of the audience can't respond to him.
Not that any of the thousands of people who raged at that headline on YouTube and Twitter ever bothered to find out.
Like, you can't take the position that the anime had wrongs that had to be made right, but also say Watanabe was groundbreaking and pushing the envelope and inserting his politics everywhere. Like, I get there's some gray area with that, but he just does not justify it well at all. When I was referring to the pacing in it, I was specifically talking about from the 35-minute mark to the 50-minute mark of the video, where Jeff wants to talk about how the original Cowboy Bebop was more woke than the newer one because the newer one wasn't woke enough.
Did Netflix make Cowboy Bebop, quote-unquote, too woke? No. Quite the opposite, actually. Cownet Bopflix is demonstrably and substantially less woke than the original.
This kind of statement borders on the line of parody for how insane it is to anyone using their eyeballs and functioning brain. Don't believe your lying eyes. Who determines what's woke enough and what isn't? The Pope? Characters in the original, like Gren, are bastardized to fit a certain agenda that he acknowledges in his video.
It kinda just feels like they gutted a nuanced, groundbreaking portrayal of gender dysphoria to make way for the most basic form of LGBTQ tokenism.
But for him, it's not really enough. He's playing the revisionist history where he says these politically charged themes were integral to the story, despite being completely overlooked by the vast majority of audiences.
Cowboy Bebop the anime is a pointedly, unapologetically political work of art that bakes a lot of salient insights about our present into its detailed, dystopian vision of the future. Politics and philosophy, heavy ideas presented in a light, fun, jazzy sci-fi wrapper, are a key component of the anime's soul.
Wrong.
Only the elites in society would focus on them like he did. This line of thinking really comes out of university-level film classes. And despite being an engineer, I made an effort to take some of them because I found it interesting. And one of the lessons they'll make you learn is on the Marxist analysis. Regardless of its original intentions, what's taught in higher education is a thought process that views every piece of media through the lens of classism, sexism, racism, and any other ism you want to apply to it. And if Mother's Basement wanted to make that into its own video, he's welcome to do it. But it just doesn't fit the topic of this video, and in my opinion, doesn't fit Cowboy Bebop in general. Throughout this abhorrent section of the video, he focuses primarily on the influence of classism on Bebop's setting and story. And to me, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the themes that made Cowboy Bebop, Cowboy Bebop.
I only wanted to send out a warning against the needless waste created by capitalism without philosophy. The needless colonization of planets, the needless circulation of slanted media, and needlessly tall buildings that symbolize all of this.
At its root, it's a very human show based primarily on the character development of the entire crew. The setting is a means to an end to support the characters and themes, but in the forefront are not themes about classism. Faye's character journey is not a critique of how the healthcare system is legal extortion.
Like they surgically removed all implication from her backstory that privatized medicine might just be extortion with extra steps.
That's frankly one of the stupidest, most partisan things I've heard, and it's something that would only come out of a political hack. Takes like Spike not being able to let go of his past caused his death, and that Faye is a femme fatale with a heart of gold, show that he'll only take a surface-level approach to analyzing what actually matters from a character-driven story.
Spike Spiegel is doomed to die because he is fundamentally incapable of accepting loss and refuses to learn the lesson of where that leads, no matter how many times it catches up to a bounty he was just about to cash in on. The whole skin show and seduction weaponizing femme fatale with the heart of gold thing anime Faye had going on was outdated, and I vehemently disagree with that assessment.
These takes are so shallow because they don't acknowledge things like Spike's entire arc wasn't about him not letting go of the past, it was about him confronting the past, and that language gives more of a positive connotation. Same thing can be said about the mischaracterization of Faye. As someone who has a heart of gold, are we even watching the same show? This heart of gold is more like the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow because it really doesn't exist for a character like Faye, who lives a transaction-oriented life. You scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, but only if it benefits me. And pointing out how these things were not present at all in the Netflix adaptation would make for a good, painfully honest review. And to be fair, he does a little bit of that here and there, but like I said, it's just so surface level for a character-driven story. The fundamentals of storytelling are characters, themes, setting, and plot. That's from Araki-sensei himself. The most necessary of all of them should be characters because a story can exclude all of the rest and still be enjoyable, a la Seinfeld. But he wants to focus on the minuscule themes. They're not even themes, really. More like undertones of classism, Trumpism, and other buzzwords instead.
Now, some of you might argue that I'm projecting what I want to see onto Cowboy Bebop because of my own personal political biases. Yes. I think anyone can enjoy it regardless of their political views.
Yes. Oh my God.
But that message is still there, and it couldn't be louder or clearer.
No.
Again, he can do that, but it totally ruins the point of a review of the Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop, and I think it misses the point on what people should be getting out of a show like this. I personally don't subscribe to that line of thinking because I think it views the world in a far more depressing way than it really is. I honestly don't understand how people can take this guy seriously when he can't even accept that he had a terrible opinion. He vehemently defended the basement order on Twitter instead of acknowledging that that it was either just a meme or actually a trash take. But hey, that's the game journalist at heart, so I don't know what I expected. I just find it hilarious he totally fell for the baited response of, oh, you didn't watch the hour-long video and 9 hours of OG Cowboy Bebop material and 10 hours of Netflix Bebop material and these specific Watanabe interviews and other shows, so you can't have an opinion. That's just dumb. That's dumb. And the fact that he would go on to gaslight me immediately after that is even dumber. He's a liar and a hack. That's my painfully honest review of Mother's Basement.